record to the cloud. Okay, welcome Rabbi Chirik, and we're going to go to the sharing the screen and share.
Okay, so let's start. We have been learning about how different emotions can integrate with each other even when they disagree. And it's basically how different types of people can work with each other. And it's also not only people, it's nature, how different, every substance in this world has a way of behaving. And that is because there is an angel which is stapled to that substance that gives it its behavior. And the question is, how can different substances come together and behave in a whole new different way, like in chemistry or even in cooking? And that is because there is a way which they integrate. And we spoke last week how there's two ways of integration. One way of integration is because they because the substances or the angels or the emotions of the people take on a higher purpose, that they both agree to a higher purpose, or they don't agree on the higher purpose, but they agree that deep down I have that opposite emotion inside me, so it's not really foreign. I'm not doing something foreign to myself. Rather, I am just bringing out a different aspect of myself, and therefore I can agree with you on this on this mission, not the goal, but I can agree on the mission. So let's look inside. Okay. Now we can understand the echus is like quality of so basically it means the deeper look on the parts of different ways of iskalus, of how different things can make a wholeness. The chesed v'gvura, for example, the emotion of kindness and emotion of strictness, or the behavior of kindness and the behavior of focus. Gam b'gvura shebechesed, for example, gvura shebechesed im chesed shebegvura. Now let's do this again. So what gvura shebechesed is, it means a behavior of strictness with an intent of kindness. For example, a parent is intending the well-being of their child, but they're behaving in a strict way, but the intent is kindness. And that emotion can mix with somebody who has chesed shebegvura, who's doing kindness with the intent to be strict. I once I'll give another metaphor from a special forces guy, and what these guys do is they actually call up their arch enemy, and they recognize that they have different intents, but nevertheless sometimes they agree to behave in a way that's cohesive with each other, even though they recognize they have opposite intents. But when it comes to certain projects, they'll work together. So we have chesed shebegvura, kindness with the intent to be strict, is getting along with strictness with intent to be kind. The gam shehem beis hefchim, even though that they are two opposites, but Yosef very opposite. Shezeh tekef hachesed v'zeh tekef hagvura, that this one is the ultimate kindness because it's strictness with the intent to be kind. The end state will be kind. And this one is total strictness because he's being kind with the intent to come to an end state of strictness. And how much more so when they're using mediums. Levushim means clothes. The clothes, there's a metaphor for changing mediums. So they're basically using various changing mediums to achieve their goal. Shezeh payal din, v'zeh payal chesed. The first one is actually poil that is doing an act of judgment. V'zeh poil chesed. The other one is doing an act of judgment. Nevertheless, mitzad shekol echad poil b'shvil davar hipuchei, since each one is working for the opposite intent, dafka, shebegvura shebechesed pulas din, because strictness inside kindness, the behavior is judgment, but the inside of it, the intent of it, the end state is kindness. The chesed shebegvura, and kindness inside strictness, pulasa chesed, the behavior is kindness, but the inside, the intent, the end state is judgment. How can yuchlu love kecha dafka? Nevertheless, both people can hang around. Mipnei shekol echai mare beis hefchem al kopanim. It's because at least both of them have two parts, right? So they're the opposites, but since both of them have two parts, we can say, listen, we have something in common. And we're going to give an example. Como Gabriel, shehitzolas Avram. It was the angel of Gabriel, whose function is strictness. Nevertheless, he behaved in a kind way, at least the end state was kind, that he saved Abraham from a burning oven. For example, what he did for Abraham is he cooled down the hot coals inside the oven, and this is gvura. Its focus, it's being strict because he turns off the coals, shebechesed, with the goal of being kind, that it'll end up an end state of saving Abraham. We'll give you another way of looking at it. Kamoi ze'ateva moitzi es choli achim. A good sweat takes out the sickness of a fever, because basically when a person is sick, they're not in a good state. When they're hot, when the temperature is hot, so what can happen is that we're going to have a sweat, which seems to show on something strict. It's nevertheless, the end state is that it heals the fever. It's like a healing for a wound. Now, here's another example, is that God smote, in other words, caused damage to the tremendous army of Sancheriv. What did he do? He gave kindness to them. He poured out abundant kindness to the army of Sancheriv, but the end state was Gvura, that they died. Why did they die? Because when you expose the soul to too much good, the soul wants to leave the body. So the end state was the entire army died. Like it is written, V'yatza Malach Hashem, that the angel of God came out and he was nice to them. He revealed divinity to them more than their body can handle, and the soul left the body. Kindness with the intent of being strict. Kiyadua, like it's known, Vidal, and what we've said till now is enough for the understanding person. The Hainu, and this means this idea of connecting opposites, Liskala Smaila Biyamina, Biyamina Bismaila, that we basically unite the left with the right and the right with the left. Shul Kamai Era Chesed B'Chli Agbura. This is the intent of kindness in a vessel, in a behavior of strictness. That the vessel is actually does the exact opposite of the light, of the intent shalai. Because a vessel of strictness behaves in a strict way. Hepach shel hesed, which is the opposite of the light of kindness, shabai, which is inside it, even though the end state will be kind. And the same thing, and the opposite, kliach chesed, a vessel of kindness, peil chesed, behaves in a kind way. Hepach agvura, shabai, which is opposite of the intent of strictness inside it. However, in the end state will be strict. It will not be good for the person. The ein ze hepach klal, and the truth is they are not opposite. The truth is they are not opposites. Because he is a light and a vessel. In other words, people are compound. People are compound. Shu kinyan chaymer v'tzura. This is the idea of chaymer v'tzura. Chaymer means matter. V'tzura means form, which means the spiritual magnetic imprint, or whatever you want to call it, that shapes the form. The chaymer is the vessel. The tzura is the light. As I'm going to explain. The commercial kosovo, and it's like it's written in a different place. B'inyan is kalos the shame membase v'shem abbase. So now let's learn some Kabbalah, and it speaks about how both the name of God, which ends up equaling 42, and another name of God, which ends up equaling 72. And I understand that the first portion of the Shema prayer, the paragraph, has 42 words which correspond to a name of God. It's a code for a name of God, which is called the name of God of 42. And the content, the content of that paragraph is kindness, love of God. Behold, you should love with God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might, right? And then if you count, I don't know where you're counting, I forgot where you're counting from, either from the beginning or from Bahayim Shemaya till the word V'samtem in the second paragraph of the Shema. And the content of that paragraph is the idea of guarding oneself lest one go astray, right? So it's more, the content is strictness, and that is represented in code by the name of God, which is 72. Now it's not the same 72 as we've spoken about in previous lessons. This is a thing for itself. I'm not fully familiar with how it works, but they of Shehain based Parshas the Krishma. These two names of God corresponded to two paragraphs of Shema. The first one and second one. The first one is kindness, the other one is strictness, and they basically in strictness and in kindness you have the others. Let's look at something very interesting that happened in history. In order to stop child sacrifice, one of the things that God did is he had to make a strong statement that will be ingrained and inscripted to the end of time, like inscripted in the Torah, that God tells Abraham, who's by the way kind. His manner is kindness. And by the way, how do we know the story? So God told this story. I mean, it was passed down, but also God, word for word, dictated the story to Moses, and it was written down. 3,330. 3,333 years ago, and he told him, he seemed to tell him to make a sacrifice, bring Isaac up as a sacrifice. And then when he brought him up the mountain, so the angel of God told Abraham, no, we don't do this. But we see that you're willing to take on an opposite emotion. It means that you serve God. In other words, if you only serve God with kindness, you could say that you're really not serving God, but you're serving yourself, because you are kind, and therefore you're just doing what's convenient for you. However, if you're willing to do something which is the opposite of kindness, it shows that you are really serving God all this time, because it doesn't matter if it's kindness or if it's strictness, whatever God wants, I'll do it. So it's really service of God. So he proved that Abraham was really serving God the whole time and not just serving his own emotions. But it also wrote down to the end of time that we don't sacrifice our kids, for the parents, for and so what is it? He says, Isha Chesed, the man of kindness, is Abraham, doing something opposite. V'kedunufas halavim sheniskalu b'chasadim. There's also something interesting that happened in the time 3,300 and around 33 years ago, that God said, wave the tribe of Levi. In other words, each member of the tribe of Levi came in front of Moshe, and Moshe was a very tall and strong man, and he picked each one of them up and waved them. And there was a spiritual transformation. Oh, it was Aaron. Oh, anyway, so in any case, there was a spiritual transformation that occurred at that moment. Sheniskalu b'chasadim, because the tribe of Levi is typically very, very strict in nature. But by through that waving, they became one with kindness. The Kohanim of Aaron, the priest. Like it's written in the verse, they will be like they will accompany you. That was a spiritual command. The Levim will accompany the kindness of the priests, of the Kohanim. How is it possible that a person that is innately strict will serve his opposite, will serve a priest who's innately kind? But it is possible, and the reason why it is possible is because they have, because God made it that they should be able to integrate with each other. And there's many such cases where there's an integration. And that the whole reason is because there is division in each individual. There is, each individual has parts, and therefore matzah mines mine v'neir. This is a halachic concept, that a person meets something that's like them, and they wake up. What is this halachic concept? Basically, if you have, let's say you have a soup, and something non-kosher, a non-kosher liquid falls into the soup. We say that if there's 60 times parts of the kosher more than the non-kosher, then the non-kosher becomes nullified in the kosher. The whole thing is still kosher. However, if afterwards more of this non-kosher liquid falls into the soup, and it's also less than 60, however, together with the other non-kosher liquid that fell in before, it's more than 60. So we say matzah mines mine. We say that that a person finds his friend and they wake up. In other words, they reactivate the non-kosher, which was before nullified. It becomes reactivated, and now there is not 60 times of kosher parts of soup, kosher liquid compared to the non-kosher liquid, and and we say the whole thing is now not kosher. Say you a joke. There was a friend, and when this friend would meet, is a very good educator. He's a very good educator, and he's able to sort of morph into and mirror the person that they're educating. But this friend of mine was also able, when he met a peculiar person, he was able to morph into that peculiar manner. And I used to say, "Matzah minas mina v'neir." You found that peculiar aspect of yourself, and as you met this person, and that's why you're able like to wake up and behave in a peculiar, strange way. So that's the idea of finding an aspect of the other person inside yourself and waking that up. Mamish. Now, this can even happen when two entities are two opposites. Like it's possible to get the two angels of Michael and Gabriel. So basically, these angels are stapled to Sar Shel Eish. He's the Sir of the Sir, like as in night, as in minister. The minister of fire, Umayim, and the minister of water. And you actually could have both ministers of fire and water, and they don't turn each other off. And I was listening to from somebody how to make a steak, and they were explaining something interesting that happens when you put a steak on the fire. So the liquid inside the steak moves away from the fire. And at one point in time, you can hear from the dripping that the steak is making that the steak is ready. So I was thinking about the fact, okay, so we're speaking about the behavior interaction of the angel of Michal, who's in charge of the water, and the angel of Gabriel, who's in charge of the fire. And they're able to interact with each other in a way that you can actually make a steak that's not too dry. So, Kamishakos Asa Shalom, it's written in a verse, God makes peace between these two opposite angels. Why? Because in each one of them, they have a little bit of the opposite. Shemenagde, which is opposite to it, dafka. One second, we're going to wait till this comes past. Okay, so this is New York City. So we were speaking about fire and water, and we had a fire truck, which brings water to turn off the fire. Anyway, but here we're speaking about that both can exist in harmony with each other because God makes peace between them. Because in each one of them, they have a little bit of the opposite, which is really opposite of Him. However, if we go to a higher level of Seder Shtashlus, which we've been learning about in previous chapters, if we go to the level of dots, which is the idea of drives, crowns, because crowns and since they're all of the essence, then they're not able to give space to each other, and they're not able to become holistic, because each one is totally separate from the other one. And there's no way you will find the opposite emotion in one ground, because it's an essence. It's of the essence. The essence of good. In the essence of the soul, Isha Tov, the good man, Hanikra Omek Tov, which is called the deep goodness, Imetzamara, and the essence of bad, Shanikra Omek Ra, which is called the depth of bad. Both of those cannot mix. You will not get along. The essence of good will not get along with the depth of bad. However, we do find something strange happens. Bali Tshuva means people that decide to return to who they really are. Anurayim, we see Shenahapech, Gam Etzamara Latayv. We see that even the essence of bad can transform into being good. The actual intentful bad can transform into merits. How is that possible? So the explanation is because the person comes to such a realization that how bad the depth of the bad is, and they put even more effort to be even better than they would have been otherwise if they wouldn't have gone through that negative experience. So then retrospectively, we look at the negative experience, how this negative experience or negative behavior actually fueled a whole new level of good. So then retroactively, we can say that the negative behavior is part of the good, because without the negative behavior, the person wouldn't have come to this high level of goodness. So then we can say that bad behavior transforms into something good, even though in itself it's not good. But after the whole story, that negative behavior actually brought to a higher level of goodness, so it gets transformed as good. It gets identified as something good, even though it isn't good in itself. So now the reason this person is able to cause such a transformation, which is usually not possible, is because they Mesiras Nefesh, they deliver their soul to the essence of the unlimited light, Shelamayla Gam, that is even higher. What does he say next? Let's turn the page. Which is even higher than his Chalkut Etzem HaChesed Ugvura. So he gives himself over to the essence. He delivers his soul to the essence, which is even higher than the essence of kindness and strictness. If you remember in chapter 10, you have the essence, but then you have the 10 building blocks of creation, which are of the essence. So he gives himself higher than kindness and strictness, which are of the essence. He gives himself to the essence itself. And that is why only when a person delivers their soul to the essence of God, then specifically you can successfully pray. And I mean over here, the word lispal also means to reverse judgment, to cause different judgment. And that's when you can say, Veloimer, Yehi Rotzain, may it be and you will, Be'etzem, in the essence of God, Milfanecha, in front of you, etc. Chulu. V'chein yaver Hashem al panav, and also it's written in the verse, God passed over his face. Kal Racham, in other words, he went higher than his presentation. Kal Racham, and he to a new presentation as compassionate. Lapach gamadin be'etzem lachesed. Even to change total strictness to kindness. And like it is written regarding the 13 attributes of the beard. Now, so basically, there is some, I'm just going to wait for that to pass. This is New York. So let me explain. So the beard brings down compassion. How so? Because the beard is a metaphor for the 13 attributes of compassion. The beard is somehow fueled by the skull and the liquid around the brain. There are, okay, so the way the 13 attributes of compassion are divided is it's 6 and 6, and there's one in the middle. So the first 6 are total kindness, like the love of life itself. And they present in 6 different ways. Then there's a 7th attribute of compassion, which is the truth, which is a balance between kindness and strictness, because that is the truth. When you take everything into consideration, that is the truth. And then there's another 6 attributes of compassion, but these ones focus on, are actually about focus. In other words, it's not just like a general love of life. This is a focus. Now, what do we mean? Basically, in order to have insight and then detailed thinking, the liquid around the brain, which is connected to Kesa, which is the crown, which is like the idea of pleasure and want, it filters through the membrane of the brain and feeds the brain like rain. And that allows the brain to come up with insight. And so it's basically like a funnel. So in other words, when you drip that liquid into the brain at large amounts, a person feels pleasure, but not necessarily are they able to come up with something useful like an insight. So you really have to limit the dripping into the brain in order for the brain to come up with something specific and useful like an insight in a specific topic. And that is why it is specifically the eighth of the 13 attributes of compassion that feeds the right brain, which is insight, and allows for that function to happen, allows for insight to happen in a specific topic. However, for detailed thinking, a person needs to have an even smaller focus of this liquid. So for that, we say that the left brain is fed by the very last of the 13 attributes of compassion. It is fed by the smallest muzzle. It's like the smallest, like like a feeding straw almost. It's filtered through into the brain, through the membrane of the brain in a very minute amount. And this allows for people to comprehend things. So in other words, our brain our ability to think, to come up with insight and come up with comprehension, to think in detail, is actually fed by the attributes of compassion, divine compassion. However, it's when they are in a format of focus, of gvura, of strictness and focus. However, the first six are more allowing the brain to experience pleasure and desire, but it doesn't allow a person to compute. What it allows is a person to experience life. Now, God really wants this liquid to come into the brain and give these experiences for some sort of purpose. So when a person does something good and they put effort, so as a motivation, in order that they should have the right emotion involved in the good thing that they're doing, and it's appropriate that they should have the right feeling, so God allows that liquid to seep through. However, what people sometimes do is they separate the intent of why God created this, and in other words, the effort and the work, and they try to use a back door to access these liquids. So certain, like, herbs and drugs and, you know, like, say, poppy seeds, so they allow people to access this liquid without doing the work. Now, why did God allow such a thing to happen? Well, really, it's supposed to be used as a medicine. In certain cases where something is not working, the uh, the medicine people of herbs throughout the last thousands of years would know which herb to use to heal a person. But it's not supposed to be used as a way to feel good and not to get things done. So when people try to use a back door to manipulate the liquids around their brain in order that they should have a good feeling, the soul knows what's going on, and the soul knows what's going on, and it starts saying, 1 second, it's okay for you to feel good. It's okay for you to feel good. However, you're not doing the effort. You're not doing the work. I came down here to do some work. What am I doing over here? And the soul starts like leaving the physical vessel of the body because it's not happy in the body. It's not happy. So you see a person like lose some of their vitality on their face when they're accessing the pleasures without actually doing the work, which they was created for in the first place. But on the other hand, when a person accesses these liquids in their brain and they have the pleasure, but it comes together with effort and work, then that person actually, you see, there's more vitality and more passion and more enthusiasm and more energy. And you can have people that are older and they have people in their 60 years old, they have more energy than somebody in their 20s because they're accessing this vitality because they're doing work, they're doing service, they're serving other people in their business or whatever they're doing. So they're experiencing the pleasure without causing damage to their soul. Anyway, let's go back. This was all a side point. But the main point over here is, how can you unite even emotions of the essence, which usually don't mix? How can, let's say somebody is a child, children function on emotions of the essence. In other words, that when they're into something, they're into it all the way, and sometimes there's no space for anything else. It's a little bit toyo, a little bit chaotic, but they're made that way. At least whatever they're doing, they're 100% doing that thing. But how can you get a child, a person who's accessing this level of chaos, to actually integrate? So you can do it through prayer, You really have to connect up to the real essence, to a real higher level. And then we can integrate even emotions, powerful emotions of the essence. So in the bracket, he's going to explain what is the mechanism of uniting emotions of the essence, chaotic emotions, all or nothing emotions. How is it possible to unite them through praying and connecting to the essence? This is through the ruler and the string, which we've learned about many times. The power of, because with the first part of creation, the first thing God needs to create is the idea of measurement, to the idea of a beginning, middle, and end. And that power that he creates, it has the power of the essence, or mamish, of the unlimited light of God. Like it's written, these are the words that are written, we pray to the essence of God, and we do not pray to his emotions of his essence. In other words, if we pray to the God how he's expressing an emotion of his essence, that is not an appropriate way to pray. We go higher than that. And we want to change in this world. If we want to see our situation change, we have to go to the source, which is able to integrate those things which usually don't integrate. We do not pray even to the emotions in the essence of the essence. We do not pray to that manifestation of God. Even when we use a name of God, which shows on a certain manifestation of essential emotion, we don't mean the emotion. We mean the God, the essence of God, which is behind that emotion. We're praying to the real essence, which is able to integrate everything, even things that don't really integrate. And as I'm going to explain, Be'ezras Hashem, with the help of God, Vidal, what I've said until now suffices from an understanding person. And that's the end of this chapter.
Great, congratulations. Any questions? I have a question. I thought I heard you say Chaymer v'Tzura as form and light, but I thought Chaymer and Tzura was matter and form.
And matter, and Tzura is form, but it's really the light, the spiritual light, which forms the matter.
So the light is what's creating the form. The form is not a physical thing, you're saying. It's a physical manifestation of a spirit of the light.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, no questions today. Okay, I'm gonna thank you, Ari Chirik. I'm gonna pause and we'll say a few words about the parsha.
Okay, great.